Right.
I'm ready.
How do I?
Down at the bottom, right next to the pink one. Yep.
Oh, nice. All right. Talking about the smart device chip that's week. I mean, last week I didn't record it because some issue problem. Um, Probably the smart device will follow up for the Foxconn idea. Um, I think the smart device is pretty good concept for the smart idea and the data construction. Furthermore, I want to let you guys know that T-Mobile device that you can have that device connect to your phone and go into diagnostics hub on the car. Um, Basically, this is will solve the gas in the car, and so where to find a gas station, where your car parked, and it including the Wi-Fi transmissions. So they have Wi-Fi. It's kind of hotspot in the car. Um, and I have that in my car. A pretty good experience with it. And this is basically we can make this that on the Foxconn, the smart device we call the receiver. So the receiver is going to be receive any data information from the chip, the smart chip. So the smart chip that can hook it up in everywhere, so it's going to be transfer the data. But we can make one storage data itself by micro USB chip. I mean micro chip. I mean something like store gigabyte. So we can store data in it, and put a certain location that we want, and that is only transmits the data. It's mean puts the data out, and that device gonna be receive it. So at a smart city, we call lots of data analysis. We will have our own cloud, our own data server, but this device basically contain every function with the parking structure, finding the parking, um, with finding the parking with smart ticket, smart data transmit. It's like a black box, so we can store any information data from the user, and notification, smart notification for user purposes. Think about it in the future. We have a modern day right now. We have a technology. We have Wi-Fi. We have fast Wi-Fi. We have fast transmissions. Everything we have right now is pretty much, help us to build this thing on the future. Um, this twin link transmit data is 4 kilometer, so we can use this thing for transmit data, like data information and stuff. Example, the parking structure. Then they have the concept. They have the concept. The smart parking sensor and stuff. But instead of the camera over there, we use the chip. So as you guys can see, it's over here. The camera over here. We don't use camera. The camera for security purposes, we can put it anywhere. But the device over here will be the best situation that keep track of one parking, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But all the parking will have the gate. The gate will coming up and coming down. Whenever the car, we provide a smart device that I just showed you guys, and we can reserve for the parking. We will, the smart parking will say, you want to find a parking? Yes. Around here, we have a parking. If you want to reserve, boom, reserve, put your name, you paid it. And, when you reserve it, you have 5 minutes or 10 minutes to get into the parking. Otherwise, we'll count up the time of the money worse. So whenever the car is coming in, whenever the car is coming in over here, the sensor, the chip that I'm saying, we can put it under there or over there. They will get the information from the chip, and the gate will going down, and the car will park over there. Allow the car to park, and will remind the parking. The data will be transmitted to the phone of the user. Say, okay, you have 5 minutes left. Come back to the car, or you want to pay more, or if you don't want to do anything, just leave it be. And why is it keep darkening? Yeah.
I think you're standing in front of the sensor. If it's like a smart TV like that, it'll adjust for the light of the room. So if you're standing there,
Yeah, it's getting brighter again, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, so is this the sparking over here will fill with the chip, and the chip will send the data back to the cloud and say that spot is already have people in there, so you can't reserve, you can't get it in, you can't do anything. So unless the car have the smart device that point in the first, unless the car that have this move away, and the chip will detect that okay, the cars get out. Now we can get another new car in by asking if people want to have need the parking or not. By this data, we can have this is have they can diagnose your car whenever your gas your gas cap is open. They will let you know, or your gas cap is go open. They can diagnose that. That just means we can get the speed of the user driving and save it there for accident purposes. I know I will focus on one parking though, but I want to make the device look good that can do multiple jobs. Um, this device basically have everything, so we can include everything in the smart device that I present for the Foxconn. But in that way, we can put the chip, like the school zone. Ahead of the school zone, we will put the chip that transmit the data to the car, the warning data. Like, okay, you have to drive slow. Like the school zone is 20 miles. If you drive over 30 miles, we will give you a ticket. We will send the data to the police station, and the police station will decide you got a ticket or not. It depends on them. Well, I know that is kind of crazy, but you have benefit, but the government have benefit. That's in that way the government don't need to pay for the police to go around to catch you because you're driving so fast. They just pay the police, go around the smart city, catching a criminal or guarding something. That more safety. Um, in other way, the device will contain some option that they broken your window and stuff. They can transfer the data to the police station close, and the police will know your location and come right away. It's not that time you need to pick it up the phone. I got some thief broke into my car window. Another function, cool function though. This device connect to the phone, but if the device away from the phone connection, or away from the phone connection, like 0.2 or 0.3 mile, the car will shut it out and lock the door itself, or the car lock the door itself, and you can open the door by using the phone. Actually, I have that technology on my phone by Honda Links. I can open the car, turn off the car, turn on the car by itself, by the phone. Right now, if my car parking at home, I can turn on the engine and open the door for someone driving the car. Um, that's his cool function, but I want to make this in one small device, because what if they use an old car, they don't use a new car for technology? So we provide this device can help the old car go to the smart city. And the chip is the smart chip basically is pretty useful. You can use for anywhere. Commercial, like commercial. You have a restaurant, it's right over here between 1 mile, between 1 mile, you can put one chip over here, one chip over here. For the commercial, we can give information data out, like, okay, the restaurant is over here. There's a history of restaurant is selling American food, steak and stuff. If you hungry, you can stop by, and we can charge the business restaurant monthly. So if they want to commercial, we can charge them for people get into the smart city. So we can give this device to the user for free, but not free. Whenever you get out of smart city, you have to give it back, or it's certain you have to give it back in like 30 days, or you have to pay $80. This device costs like $77 in the T-Mobile store. I think it make it less, $30 for the device, but it's have benefit to you, benefit to everyone, benefit to government. Why not to do it? So the smart device. That is why I want to develop for a Foxconn idea. That any question? Yeah.
So this would be kind of cool, like if this is integrated maybe also the rental car system too or something. Then like from now you wouldn't have to go to a counter, wait in line for like however long. For some reason rental cars always take forever to like get them, and like if you just get that as soon as you arrive, I get off the plane and they send you your stuff to your phone, and then they can even unlock the car.
Yeah, you can go to the car, unlock
straight
it,
to the car,
get
and
the
they
car.
unlock, maybe the keys already in it or something like that.
Yeah, you can.
Like you would just have all the sensors and you'd be good to go.
Yes, that is another option. So we can do everything on a smart device and a smart chip. So it's but well, I'll focus on the parking structure, smart parking, finding parking. But in that way, I want to submit that device can do much more than the parking to make look good in Foxconn.
I think the smart parking is really cool. I think that's a really good idea. Like just to be able like you pull into a Walmart parking lot and then you get notification. Okay, there's like 18 spots available. One's 2 in this aisle, just 3 in this aisle.
Yeah,
Just like,
and the parking times, like you parking on the road, they have a time too. You have only 2 hours. You just put the chip over there. The chip will transmit the data to the receiver device inside your car and let you know, okay, you only have 2 hours. You want to park there? It's free. You say yes. You walk away. If 2 hours later you don't walk back to the car and driving the car away, the chip basically give you a ticket because you parked over 2 hours.
Or what if it was like, as long as you're parked there, it'll just keep charging you, almost like a taxi.
Wow, but what if the heavy traffic, like the time you can park, free time you can park at 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So 7 p.m. you cannot park there. So what if you do that? People can park there forever.
I see that.
And the traffic will come up, problem cannot solve. So
you could be like, if you park longer than 2 hours, you're gonna be like, it's gonna go up.
Yeah,
or something
like up money. You can
make a lot of good money.
$3, something. We'll keep charging you. So, any question?
I always find it interesting when you see some of these movies that kind of show this idea of like smart parking lots, not kind of, I mean, done in, so not really done this way, more this is like a hybrid approach, but like when you pull your car in and then there's like a hook that comes and grabs like in front of your car and kind of hangs it like it's a coat. You've seen this before, right? I think they actually do it in the movie iRobot.
Really?
Well, yeah. You. I mean.
Well, but what's funny about it? So you pull your car into like this little garage thing, and then like the conveyor belt comes through, and it grabs your car, and just lifts it straight up, so it's like hanging there, to take up the least amount of space or something. Well, you're thinking that all these people have all this crap in their car, just like dumping garbage all over their windshield and whatever they have in the back seat, and Well,
you can do that. You can think about that, but it's hard to top it one that you can get off the car if the people want to get off. Like your car is to get inside the corner.
The car or something.
Yeah. Well, what should you do? You get the car waiting for an hour to solve a problem.
Yeah. No, this is a good idea. This is the thing you're submitting for the smart city thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
All right.
You're just gonna do your other one now?
Yes.
All right.
All right. So the midterm, come on, open up, dude. Talking about the Bible, the Matthew 6, some of on the pretty neat, pretty good for like the lecture, lesson for you to learn it in the life. So basically, you the Matthew Bible, I mean the Matthew story, want to giving us something. It's I can say it relate a lot to the um your job in the future, not only the computer science and everything you use in life, even though your um your mind, your body. So it's pretty good to read it, to research it. I love it. So the quote here: "We can help everyone, but everyone can help someone." So example, like the thing is related to the computer science. Then you can help a lot of people at the time that you need it. Because example, you just freshman and you sophomore, you know something about sophomore, you pass a freshman, you can help the freshman student. You cannot help the senior people because they know experience more than you. But if you have something, you help them, maybe in the future someone will help you back. So it's like a karma. um, One who shows graces to a poor man, lend to the Lord, and he will be repay him for a good deed. So it's like this is pretty good quote too, because think about it. If you have someone, this maybe next day of at your job, will people will be coming and help you later. You don't, the Lord will pay you back. Um, um, in the Matthews 6 and 7, they have one. It's called judging order. So it related for me. I'd kind of a lot of related. Why? Because it's I have experienced before. That's one of my friend. Um, he does judging a lot of people around his family. But it's only one thing that I changed his mind. I talked to him. Well, have you think you are perfect person? So if you perfect person, you can judge them, but you cannot judge them if you're not perfect. You have to judge your body yourself first before you judging another people. So it's like related to computer science. Whenever you got a job, you cannot like okay, that guy suck or something. But you have to think about yourself. You good enough to judge them yet. Um, like mocking or something is kind of not good either way on um, the Bible verses. Um, they have the John and the Matthew. Many people know two Bible verses over there a lot. So counting all the people sin does not make you sin. So um, don't counting them about sin or something. Just think about can you forgive them if they do something wrong. So that's the way that I learned it from my life. um, in the Bible studies tool about Matthew 7, they have ask, seek, and knock. So you ask something reasonable, you seek something reasonable, and you get something reasonable. So you don't want to ask for a big price, and you can afford it, or you can like well, you think like, okay, I wish I won $1 million and I can help people. And after you win $1 million, you don't help people. Well, I help them, but I spend 100,000 to help them. It doesn't matter. The price is come from God. It's just a challenge for you, the Lord will be, challenge you that I give you reward. Do you willing to share them, or are you willing to use them for smart to help people? Because we are God children, so um, everything related. In the Matthew 8, we have a lot. So like they Matthew talk a lot about healing, helping people, um, curing paralyzed man, um, like the cost of following Jesus. What should we got? Um, well, the thing is pretty much it's not kind of related to the computer science much, but I think it's related to our life. Before you want to be in something professional, you have to have a heart. You have to have a mind that being good. Um, Clearly, uh, the smart heart or something like you have to have heart to helping people. Like Jesus did to I don't know what's his say leprosy or something. Curing them. The cost is following Jesus. Well, the Jesus the Matthew say in the Matthew book say following Jesus it doesn't help anything. They the Jesus sleep without anything in the head, doesn't have house, doesn't have anything. Um, well, that is one of um, the consequence when you go follow Jesus. But think about it, the eternal life is a better. We just live in the world right now. It's just a temporary. Everything we have here is just temporary. God will took it away if He wanted. Long times ago, I'll be poor. Now I'm not saying I'm rich, but I reasonable life. Well, he can took it tomorrow. I'll be sick and passes away. We don't know, and money will be dumped into the we don't use it. We can't use it. Otherwise, like if I have money right now, tomorrow, I have to pay something. I lost that money. So basically, it's circle around. So the life in here, it just the temporary. It doesn't do anything. The eternal life that the Jesus offer us in the heaven is gonna be the prize that we wanted. So follow Jesus doesn't mean you have to follow him. You have to follow the rule, the amendment, the one that he teach us on the Bible. The gospel is the Matthew number 10. Um, Jesus on that chapter, the Jesus sent 12 of his disciple go around the world, helping people from curing them for paradise, blind, raising them from death, decent the demon, possessed demon or something. But in this chapter, it's pretty interesting me is if you go to the town and you find some priceless people and stay with them. But if they don't be, if they welcome you, it means they welcome me. So like the Jesus saying that. Um, so which is everything is related to the computer science. I mean related to all the job in the world. Like even if you have a heart, you helping people, you do something correctly, even though you don't need to be like trumpets, like you go around say, oh, I helped that guy with uh, writing the code or something, but you don't need to do anything with that. He will, if he understand, he will tell your manager like, okay, that thing, this guy helped me. So you will earn the respect from that guy, and you will earn the respect from your manager and stuff in that feature. So on Matthew 28, the Jesus death and raising back from the tomb. In this that I read, it says Jesus is after his death, his first day of the week. Mary and not a Mary went to look at the tomb because an earthquake has occurred. Um, they don't see his body in the tomb, and the angel appear and talk to them like he's not there. For um, he said before he's risen, just go and tell everyone he will be back. Um, this is what in the Matthew's angel say, "Don't be afraid. I know you're looking for Jesus, who was crucified, and he's not here. He's been resurrected, just as he say." Um, all of this, basically, all of this related to our computer job in the future, because I think if everything like Jesus teaching us will benefit you, benefit for everyone. And if you follow his rule, follow his word, he will be with you with all humble that you have, help people, and make help a lot of people, make the people will respect and love you more, more and more. Basically, you will earn reward someday. Um, you teach people that what you know, even though if you help people, the people don't know you can help them, you earn lots of respect from them. um, if you cockiness or something, well, you get nothing. And reasonable, reasonable right now, like if you go around, you say, oh, I help that guy, doesn't anyone say, oh, you're gonna be smart? It's only people say, oh, you smart, you have that guy. It's that time only, but they gonna turn back on you and say, well, that guy cocky, why do you have to tell me that? I don't care, tomorrow he forgot it. But what if the guy you help come and tell to that guy, oh, that guy pretty smart, he can do everything? So you earn something, right? You earn something, like respect from the guy you help, and another guy that listen to that story will be respect you, as will know, oh, you're smart, and they will ask you help in the future. If you can help them. It the reward benefit from you and them. You learn something new when you're teaching people. So be it. That's what I do research.
Okay, so treating 5 books from Matthew as as papers, how did that feel different to you than looking at technology papers? This whole semester we've been working on skills looking at technology, and obviously this is a curveball of applying the same skills you've been practicing all semester, right?
Yes.
So
Well,
how was it different for you?
it's not kind of different because you do something, you learn something. It's not about your ability that you have. Like you cannot okay, I learned the computer science and I know the computer science. You have to study, you have to put your time in it. But well, if you're smart, it's mean your talent is gift from the God. And it's related to each other because, well, um, one, it teaches you how to live in the life and get more respect. And one, it's your job. And you need the job, you need the respect from the people to finish your successfully goal in the future. So they cannot be either way, separate. Because if you don't need people, your job, yeah, you can work at your job, but no one respect you. So like, all right, they gonna dump you in the way that you will be solidated in one way. So you cannot get help from the people. So they don't need you. They help each other. So they don't need you because you don't need them. But if you need them, well, the job, if you study about computer science, if you don't get them into your life, so basically you just need people. Yeah, they can teach you, but you don't have experience, so they both will go together in the same way. So life matter. Every kind of the job is the same, technology is the same. like the same at the same with everyone does on the Bible. They know in the same way because God talked to them the same way. You go to, like, if the Jesus on the Matthew already say on the Bible verses, like, if you got hated from another people because they hated me, or you got caused by the God, you you don't need to say anything. I will talk to them. Something like related here. So you do something, you don't need to do anything. You just do it.
Okay. All right. Who's next?
Jordan, you want an X?
Girl.
Yeah, girl.
John wants to.
No, it's okay.
All right, I'm gonna go next.
Girl, you want to go next? Come on, man, you want to go next? I wouldn't even feel bad for you. End it with a black eye.
Yeah, girl.
John. Brought to you by John.
Oh, that was good. Give me 1 second. No, that's not working. Okay. So I looked at a few chapters in the book of John. First off, I want to say that well, this is loading. This is a stretch. All right.
It's supposed to be.
Okay, it's I got a little creative with it, but hey, we're going with it. Okay, so in John 1, I read through it, and then like some things I'm trying to think of how to make the connection. So this is where I started. So we talked about the Word became flesh, and Jesus is the light Jesus being the light that darkness can't overcome. Jesus did call people to follow him in that chapter, and they're not to be the light, but to bear witness to the light. I kind of made a connection here. Technology grows and becomes more integrated into society as we see it more and more. I think, at least in the past, we've seen it over time. So then there's also a need for more people to study the field of, like, say, computer science, to work with the technology, whether that be IT or computer science. So the parallel here is that Jesus came into the world and called people to follow him, and just as computer science grows in the world today, we need more people to study it as it grows. So it's a stretch, but it was a connection. We'll go with it. All right. John 8. Jesus was confronted by the Pharisees while preaching with a woman, or the Pharisees brought a woman who committed adultery and brought to him and deserves stoning because she was actually caught in the act of adultery, I think, if I remember that right. So, she had been very terrified based upon that. She said that Jesus said that any one of them that hasn't sinned, have them be the first to throw the have them be the first to throw the stone. And no one did. They actually started walking away because they realized they were all with sin. So Jesus doesn't sin, just as computer logic itself doesn't actually make mistakes. The hardware of a computer can actually fail, though, over time, and does need fixing it or making it new. So Jesus forgives us and makes us new through him, just as if someone were to take their computer to get it fixed or they were to fix it, it is made new. But the logic part is never, it doesn't make mistakes in a sense. So the theological side is saint and sinner. We see that. Same with the computer, logic and hardware. Logic being the saint and the sinner being the hardware. So
Logic and hardware, same.
what?
What difference is in that?
Well, I'm talking about like the mathematics behind it. Like what's like you talk about a logic gate, like we're studying gates or something like that, like an OR gate. That nothing of that is going to fail, but the hardware implementation of that could fail. Like the switch could break or something like that. But the actual the idea behind it, that's that's an absolute. It's not really going to fail. So. All right, John 10, I am the good shepherd. Jesus says that those who don't enter the sheepfold by the door but climbs in another way is a thief or a robber. I kind of saw a parallel here in that just as someone that is trying to access a network or a computer that shouldn't be, based on how they do it, or if they're accessing something they shouldn't be, this could be a criminal offense. So a thief or a robber. Jesus then talks about the gatekeeper opening the door for the sheep. In the same way, a password could be used to access a network. Jesus calls us by name, by our name, and this is a really big stretch, but just as like passwords are very specific to gain you access to, say, a network. Yeah, right. It has to be exact match, right? It's very specific. So, all right. John 11, the death and resurrection of Lazarus. So Jesus heard of the death of Lazarus and brought him back to life after a few days had passed. Put that on pause. And people that have technology that isn't working, they have two options. Either one, get rid of it, or to have it fixed. So the parallel, this is even more of a stretch. So people will often give hope on their computers when something goes wrong, or at least I know, like, say my family, like whenever the computer would start to slow down or something go wrong with it, they'd probably be more willing to go out and buy a new one rather than have it fixed. Probably just because they think the technology was old or anything, and at the time didn't know much about computers. So often replace rather than fix. But rather, Jesus resurrected Lazarus, just like the Geek Squad can resurrect a broken computer. So,
Last time you actually went to Geek Squad.
I know, I just used Geek Squad, but essentially anybody can do that. Now, that's not saying that could get into a really big theological debate with that connection, but we're gonna go with it. Okay, this is the last one. Jesus is preaching to the crowds, the 5,000 people, and everybody starts to begin getting hungry, and they don't have any food except for a boy that brings 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. So Jesus broke the bread and fed all 5,000 people, and actually had the disciples pick up the baskets of leftover pieces afterwards, and there was 12 baskets of leftover pieces, which is kind of interesting. And so this is kind of parallel can be seen here as like, so say a small piece of information that say I put onto the internet, it can reach a large group of people. Just a small bit of information can reach a large people with the use of internet. Without that internet, it would take me, like, say if I wanted to write a message to you, Van, I'd have to write you a letter, and then I'd have to write you a letter. But if I had like email or something like that, the internet, I can send it to you just like that. So the loaves, in a sense, representing the information. Just as the information goes on the internet with intentions, just like the bread was intended to go to people, there are pieces of information that go to unintended places. Like, so say I'm putting information out on the internet. It can end up in places that I didn't intend for it to, due to whatever. This is the kind of connection, just like the leftover pieces of bread. So yeah, that's what I got. Any questions?
Well, so obviously it was fun. You made some of these things, but that also made you think about it, right?
Yeah.
So I'll ask you the same question I asked there. So, obviously this was outside of comfort zone, topic-wise unrelated to what we've been doing in class, but skill-wise related to what we've been doing in class. How did this feel different to you? I mean, so I could have done this with anything, right?
Yeah.
Being in Concordia, it made sense to kind of choose the Bible, but I could have taken any book that was completely unrelated to technology and said, we could have just picked up a biology book or something like that and say, write it annotated some on these chapters or something like that. How did it feel different? Do you kind of really abstract this down to the skills you use to go through this and read it? How did this feel different than what you have previously done looking through tech papers?
Well, okay, first off, I guess it was because it was the Bible. I was kind of like, I liked reading the Bible and everything, and I like, I thought it was a fun assignment. but also I was like, I don't know if I should be making that connection because I'm comparing something that's like so absolute and to something that's to computer science, something I'm studying. Which I guess if I'm drawing parallels, that's fine. I just I didn't know if I was doing it the right way. So that's what I was saying. A lot of it is a stretch in that, and you have to look at it on a very surface level, because if you go deeper, if I were to really dissect any one of these things, I could tell you 100 things that would not line up with that too. So it's just on the very basic level how it does. So I think it does teach you to in a paper, we can read it, we can get information from it, but maybe looking at it again, if you really dive in a lot deeper to that paper and you look at all the details, maybe there's a lot of information that isn't going to line up with what you're trying to portray, but the overall gist of the paper does correlate with what you're trying to get at. And yeah, so I think you have to find something within the book that does correlate or have that connection piece.
Did you find it easier to read the chapters than read the tech papers, even though you found it harder to kind of draw your conclusions from it?
I'd say yes. It was harder for me initially to find a connection to, or how I was going to connect it to computer science. But yes, reading it alone was easier because I was more familiar with it. I would say a lot of the tech papers, there's a lot of parts that I just I have to skim over, because, or at least read it and try and process of what they're getting at, because some things I'm not as familiar with. But so yeah, I would say it was easier to read, but sometimes maybe harder to draw a connection because I was easier to read. I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, yeah. So I mean, one of the reasons why, again, like I said, since it's Concordia, it made sense. But one of the reasons why I was maybe kind of excited about the, I told you guys several weeks before I left that you're not going to well, I kind of said it's going to be a weird assignment, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been thinking about this for a while, but obviously reading these tech papers, we've kind of talked about that a lot of times when you have, smart people writing some paper, they make themselves try to sound a lot smarter, right? Mm-hmm. So they try to use all these big words and hard to follow things. And so a lot of times reading these tech papers is like reading stereo instructions. They say the easiest thing in the most complex way possible, right? But now the reality is when you sit and you read the Bible, it's almost kind of the same thing sometimes, right? You have these parables and things like that, and sometimes you're reading through it and it's kind of like stereo instructions. You go to a Bible study or something, and 4 different people read the same thing and come out with these different conclusions.
Like on Tuesday noon Bible study, I know when going to that, I'm every time I go to that and we read a verse or a parable or something, I just I'm blown away because I never thought of it like that. So different ideas and so.
And now you grew up Lutheran, okay, and you're Christian but not Lutheran.
No.
How did you grow up, Jordan?
I grew up
Roman Catholic. So you're our one non-Christian, right? So I'm going to be very interested in how, because you read it as a book. This is just a book. Okay, I have an assignment. I'm reading these chapters. This is just a book, so it's going to be very interesting to get the different perspectives.
Yeah, that is why you're going to go next.
But the thing is that this assignment was purposely supposed to be kind of almost uncomfortable.
Well, everything is not uncomfortable though. Because think about it. Whenever you read the Bible, whenever you read the books that technology, like example, you do the math, technology like math, AND gate, NOR gate, you have to follow closely on the book to make it happen.
Right. But if we're really being honest with ourselves, though.
Yeah.
So I was born Jewish. I became Lutheran now. Somewhere in my 20s or something like that. So, but if we're really being honest with ourselves, Christians can sit here and say, oh yeah, I get up in the morning, I read my devotion at 4 a.m. and stuff like that. I hear some people say that kind of stuff. If we're being honest with yourself, one of the best ways to fall asleep at night is read the Bible. It's boring. You know what I mean? It is a tough book to read.
It is, yeah.
Well, but the thing, I'd rather watching the movie than watching the Bible.
Oh, I get it. But this is effectively our way of looking at stereo instructions. That's not technology, but it's I don't know. Ever since I first brought the assignment up to my wife, I've just been fascinated with it. So I'm kind of looking forward to just seeing the fallout.
I was born with a family that has Buddhism.
Yeah, right.
But I baptized it when I was young. But I think, one thing that, big skin in my face is God. I don't know.
Well, I guess. Yeah, I mean, you're Hindu, right? Yeah. So I mean, these are worldviews, and I mean, is there in Hinduism? Is there actually? I mean, I know there's many gods, but is there actually a single book that you read from, or is it like
there are many books.
so like various documents? Yeah.
It's kind of related, All religion is kind of related. Buddhism, they have a
And I knew she was going to pick it. It's the medical.
They all have similar stories.
Yeah, no,
They are similar stories.
Actually, if I had to pick my favorite, I think my favorite's Luke. He covers so many things that the other ones don't.
Okay. So the first chapter I chose was Luke 5. And I chose, for each of my chapters, I chose like a specific section of it to focus on. So this one, I focused on Jesus forgives and heals a paralyzed man. So the story is that Jesus is teaching in a crowded house filled with Pharisees and teachers. And this paralyzed man is brought in by a group of guys, but they can't get him to Jesus. Jesus is in the center of this house. They can't get there. So they end up climbing on the roof and lowering him down from the roof and putting him in front of Jesus. Jesus heals him and basically tells all the men, your sins are forgiven. And the Pharisees kind of are taken aback. They're like, how do you have the power to do this? And Jesus is like, well, it's just as easy for me to say, your sins are forgiven as it is for me to say, hey, pick up your mat and go home. But because you don't believe I have the power to do this, I'm going to do it now. Pick up your mat and go home. And the guy picks it up and amazed was all. So my relation to computer science with this one is kind of thinking outside the box. So the paralyzed man, he wanted healing, had no way to do it. So these men found a way to get him there. Similarly, sometimes getting to a solution means you have to think in some outlandish ways, some ways that other people might not accept, or just trying really weird things that other people are like, why would you even try that? But sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So I think that's a huge thing for almost anything, but especially in computer science, especially working with Python and all that stuff. And you're like, just try it, see what happens. And sometimes it's the really weird stuff that ends up working. So the next chapter is Luke 8, and I chose the parable of the sower. So in this parable, Jesus is talking about a farmer that is sowing seeds. And the seeds get scattered as he's sowing them along a path, on rocky ground, into thorns, and then on good soil. So the seeds that are sown on the path, they get trampled or eaten by birds. The seeds in the rocky ground grow, but there's not enough moisture in the soil to actually survive, so they die. The seeds that go into the thorns grow, but the thorns end up taking over and the plants don't grow. And then the seeds on good soil end up growing. Jesus then relates the seeds to the word of God. So those on the path, the people hear the word of God, but the devil intervenes, takes it away, and they don't end up keeping the word in their hearts. On the rocky road, they receive the word, but it doesn't take root. So they have this belief until they're tested in some way, and then they kind of back away from it, because why would I be tested if, God is good? And then those in the thorns, they believe, but then the worries of life, the riches of life, everything like that, it kind of chokes it out, and it covers this belief, so they don't mature in their belief. And then those that are in the good soil end up growing and maturing, and they persevere through the word of God. So I took the idea of perseverance from this story, in the sense that you'll have many opportunities, many ideas, many seeds to be sown. Some will be good, some not so good. Some will work out, some won't. It's important to go through the options, to persevere through them until you find the right one. My next chapter is Luke 11, and I chose Jesus' teaching on prayer. So one of the disciples asks Jesus to teach them how to pray, and he gives them the Our Father. And then he goes into like a little side story, and he says, imagine that you have company coming in from far away. You have nothing to offer them. So you go to your friend's house, it's in the middle of the night, and you ask for a couple loaves of bread. Well, your friend replies to you, he's like, I'm already in bed, my kids are in bed, I'm not getting up, I'm not going to help you. And Jesus says, basically, because of your friendship, he might not help you, but because you had the audacity to ask, he will eventually help you. And he relates this to the Lord then. So he says, those who ask, you will receive. Those who seek, you will find. Those who knock, the door will be open to you. I took the idea from this of helping others. So whether it's work or, charitable, offering help, offering ideas, or giving help when asked. So there's a lot of times teamwork is important, but, someone might be struggling a little bit, offer them help. Or if they ask, especially if they ask, help them. Charitable, offering services, your abilities, your riches to those who need it more than you do. Especially in the field of computer science, there's a world of riches that you can reach in this field, and it's always a good idea to spread the wealth instead of holding it on to just for yourself. The next chapter I chose is chapter 12. And this one had 3 areas that I looked into. The first one is the parable of the rich fool. A guy asked Jesus to pretty much instruct his brother to share his inheritance with him. And Jesus says, well, that's ridiculous. Let me tell you this parable. So he goes and telling this parable about a rich man who yielded a bunch of grain. And instead of sharing it, he was like, I'm going to find a way to save this. So he knocks down a bunch of his, barns, whatever, and builds basically a giant silo to save this grain. And if he saves this grain, he can just chill out for the next couple years. He doesn't have to work. He can relax, enjoy life. And God says, nice try, buddy. What happens when I take your life tonight? You've saved all this grain. You haven't shared it. Who's going to get all this? You've done all this work now. You haven't shared it. Where does it go? You can't enjoy it. In this sense, again, keeping things to yourself and not sharing is a huge thing, especially with how far you can get in the field of computer science, whether it's information-wise, monetary value, sharing ideas, sharing concepts, working together instead of hoarding it all for yourself. The next one was called Do Not Worry. It was basically a short snippet saying, don't be overly concerned with your problems in life. Don't be concerned about where your money's going to come from. Don't be concerned about where your food's going to come from, how you're going to clothe yourself. God will provide if you live in his word. And then it went on to actually explicitly say, sell your possessions, give to the poor, and God will, give you tenfold when you go to the kingdom of heaven. And then the other one was watchfulness. And it was a story of servants who are prepared for their master. So this master goes out, he's at a wedding or something, and the servants stay home. They have his food prepared, his table, his whatever. They're all prepared and they're just waiting for him. And he could show up at any minute, and that's what a good servant does. And Jesus said, you should be like this servant. You should be ready for the coming of the Son of God, and just always be prepared instead of being the servant that waits for however long and is like, oh, my master's not going to come back. And then they sit down, they indulge in their master's stuff, basically taking advantage of it, and their master could come home and surprise them at any time. So in this one, it was kind of a don't waste trust, don't waste your resources, kind of be prepared, work together, but otherwise just share your wealth with other people. And my last chapter is chapter 16, and I chose the parable of the shrewd manager. So it's a parable about a rich man that finds his manager was wasting his possessions. So he says, I want an account of what you've been doing, but regardless of what you tell me, you're fired. And the manager then is like, well, what am I going to do with my life now? I don't have the strength to work in the fields. I don't have the ability to do this and that and the other thing. And so he thinks, and he's like, well, I'm going to go to my master's debtors, so those who owe my master money. And he goes, how much do you owe my master? I owe him 1,000 coins. Okay, lower that amount to 800. I owe him this many gallons of oil. Okay, lower that to this many. So basically, he was getting into good graces with the debtors. And the master then in return commends him. So he's done something dishonest. He's used his master's resources, but then he goes and thinks shrewdly, which is kind of a way of saying he was really sharp in a way that he was thinking, where he created this almost community with the debtors instead of making them like fear that they owed the master so much. So he commended him. And then Jesus went on to say that, turn it into those that can be trusted with a little, they can also be trusted with a lot. Those that are dishonest with a little, they will surely be dishonest with a lot. And then he ends it by saying, you can only serve one master. So in his example, it was you can serve God or you can serve money. Are you going to hoard the money? Are you going to be dishonest with it? Or are you going to serve God and kind of create these friendships with you on earth instead of creating this monetary value on earth? Because the friendships you can kind of take with you as you go, but the monetary stays here. So I kind of related that to it being relatively easy or monetarily beneficial to cut corners or sell out in some way in the field of computer science. But it's not always the best way. And you can't always serve a boss, money, company, all while serving God. So it's better to kind of stick true to yourself and your faith and be a good person rather than build up the monetary values. And then I tried to parallel it to my life, but I am so not that far in my computer science world. So I kind of just took it as I try to think outside the box with things, try to persevere. I've changed programs too many times to count in school, pushed through all sorts of difficulties, and I try to help in any way possible in the event that I will need help, a lot of help in the program later. So, yeah.
So interesting question. How much, so you said you're not far into the computer science stuff yet, but based on your perception so far, and maybe it's going to be easier to answer for the other classes, this class is like different, right?
Yeah.
How much, so obviously you feel like you're going to have some weaknesses, but how much do you think that your background from the pharmacy program has helped you in computer science? What aspects of it have
That's a
benefited
good question. Well, I think the biggest aspect of the chemistry and prepping for pharmacy is just the amount of information. Personally, my physical chemistry class just prepared me for being miserable. So no matter how hard computer science has gotten so far, it has never been as bad as PChem. So that's a good preparation. And then I know my chemistry senior sem was basically this class, but 10 times harder. So no offense, not that this isn't hard, but it wasn't enjoyable.
Class is fun, not too much pressure. When we're in class, we get out early, but it's a hell of a lot of work outside of class.
Yeah.
That's typically my feedback.
Yes. I think I put in more effort for the chemistry one, but my grades were 10 times worse than in this class. So it's kind of, I guess I understand computer. I guess I understand more about computer science than I realize, but yeah.
So what made the physical chemistry class so horrible?
I'd say just the physical chemistry material.
It's the subject. It wasn't like a specific teacher.
I mean, teacher's difficult. He's probably one of the hardest graders. Half the class was lab reports, and luckily I had him for a different class, so my lab reports were the only reason I passed the class.
Okay.
I know, shocking, right? But the material, even you can talk to the other chemistry professors, and their least favorite class was PChem.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just that subject is a very
There's only one person I know that enjoys it, and that would be the professor that teaches it.
Who's the teacher that teaches it?
Dr. Beck. It's a cool subject.
It's well, and
So
he
the extent that we took it was just insane.
and he likes it because you mix physics and high level math. So that's a John subject. You just add the chemistry to
And
it.
it's all theoretical because you can't see it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
can't
so
visualize
it kind of sounds like, my favorite class to teach is our programming language theory class, where we write a programming language. And most of the students hate the class because it's really difficult. But it's my favorite class to teach. And none of the other faculty want to teach it.
It's probably very similar.
That's the only comparison I'm kind of making, but it's, yeah, that's always interesting to me, learning about hard stuff and other subjects.
Yeah, look up PChem sometimes.
I'm
I'll-
going to.
Yeah.
I'll wear my sweatshirt next week, and you can just read the back of my sweatshirt.
That's where we're.
No. It's just he spelled out PChem with different equations that we
Oh.
use, and the front says "Ask me about PChem," and I always walk into a room saying, "For the love of God, do not ask me about PChem."
So I'm going to look up physical chemistry. I'm going to try to watch a YouTube video on it.
I wish you luck.
That's how I learned about cricket when I was over in India. Yeah, so you're a cricket fan, right? So one of the drivers introduced me to, they said that the god of cricket. Who am I talking about when I say god? Yeah. So there's this guy who's supposed to be like the best cricket player ever, blah, blah, blah. So I watched like 4 hours of YouTube videos of this guy and trying to like appreciate how good he was.
Was it a pitcher or I don't know what?
No, I mean, I think he's
know.
he's known for being a really aggressive batsman.
Okay.
So he scores a lot of points when he's up to bat. He's very precise and that kind of stuff. So but what I found interesting about it is, since I don't understand cricket very much, the fascinating part for me is, you talk to all these different people, like I just mentioned a phrase to him, he gave me a name, right? Just like you might say, who's the greatest basketball player ever? Somebody's going to say Jordan, maybe a recent person might say LeBron, but either one of those, right? Okay. So if you go and watch somebody who's just universally considered to be great at a sport, are you going to be able to kind of distill from that what greatness in that sport means? You kind of see what I mean? When you watch Michael Jordan in a NBA Finals highlight reel or something like that, you kind of see how he was so much better than everybody around him. And I think I kind of gathered that from watching, the videos of this guy where, he's like laughing about it as he's like scoring zillions of points and stuff. It was, I found it fascinating. So yeah, so now I'm a professional cricket player too. I have played, sort of. Well, I've held the bat,
cricket bat.
the cricket bat thing, the stick thing.
I think the way they pitch just blows my mind.
Are you supposed to hit it in the air like this? Or are you supposed to stay on?
Well, so it's all point based. So if you hit it really far and it flies out of the park or out of the pitch or something like that, that's your most number of points. Otherwise, you're trying to hit for it to get to the barriers. So there's like a big circle that goes around it. So it doesn't really matter, I don't think, if it's rolling or if it flies 3/4 of the way there and then bounces and rolls out. The people on the field are trying to keep it from getting out to that barrier. That's accurate, right? So there's some number of points you get depending on where you're hitting. Just stop it. But while it's rolling out or doing whatever, the people, you have two batsmen, they're running back and forth, scoring points as well. So there's
I feel like I
yeah. So you're like you're encouraged to do whatever you're going to do quickly, but you're definitely going to. I mean, they're running back and forth anyways while this thing's traveling, so you're definitely going to save yourself some points if you keep it from getting to the barrier.
Sounds
Seems to
fun.
be the. Yeah, I mean, it really is kind of fascinating, and when you really consider this is from an interesting infographic thing that just got me thinking about just the sheer population over there. There's so you see India and China on a map, right? So you draw a circle around India and China, and then they say more people live inside of this circle than outside of it. It's a true statement.
Holy cow.
You draw a circle around India and China on a map. More people live inside of that circle than live outside of that circle. So India has about 1.35 billion people. China has about 1.38 billion people. So India is just a little bit behind China, yet India is a little bit bigger than a third the size of China. And China is much larger than India is. So their population density is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But regardless, they're right next to each other, and you have
So there are two states in India. They are like they are half of California, but they have 300 million population.
Oh my gosh.
They are very dense population.
So, I mean, you basically have these two countries. So maybe India plus China combined is probably a little bit larger than the United States. Maybe even not larger than the United States if you throw Alaska in. Probably isn't.
Yeah,
It probably isn't larger if you throw Alaska in. Yeah, it has, 3 billion people. It's just right there.
Nuts.
And in India, so you have 1.5 billion people that all love cricket, every one of them. There's 0 people in India who don't love cricket. The thing is that may actually be a true statement. There are 0 out of 1.5 billion people who don't love cricket.
When you go to India, when you learn the cricket, you have to ask basketball. Like,
As for who, what?
no, I'm just joking. When you go to India, you want to learn cricket, you have to ask a basketball player.
Ask a basketball player?
You're not going to find very many basketball players in India.
Just kidding.
All right, next.
Money.
Easy. Thanks for the popcorn, girl.
Anytime.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead whenever you're ready.
So today for the presentation, I have taken Matthew book. This is the first book of the New Testament, as I've heard. So this is now the first is the chapter 8. So here in this chapter, it discusses about the Jesus healing people. Jesus, a man comes to the Jesus with leprosy. Jesus heals that man, and yeah, and also Jesus, a centurion comes to the Jesus, saying that her servant is sick. So Jesus heals heals the sickness of the servant, and this chapter all is about Jesus helping the people in need, like people who are sick, people who are having some diseases. Uh, uh, Jesus calming down the storms. So it's all about helping the people, helping the people in needy. So I kind of connect this to the uh, to the to the software industry. Like we have to develop applications which can help the people uh, who and which can help the underprivileged people. With the help of technology, we can actually make many things with cheaper. Like we cannot it's hard to distribute a hard copy of book to many people who many poor people, but we can easily distribute a soft copy, any information. And I feel technology will help us to actually help more people. And the next is the chapter 10 in Matthew. Here Jesus sent he gives authority to 12 apostles. Like these apostles are Matthew, James, and there's 12 apostles. They are his disciples. He gives them the power and authority to heal and help other people. And and in this the one thing the one verse I liked in this chapter is, if you get some, Jesus tells them that if you get something freely, you have to distribute them it freely. Um, no, I can relate this to the free software movement. The free software movement has revolutionized computing because it has developed a Linux operating system and many other software tools which we use today. Like if you with the help of free software, you can distribute a software without having any licensing restrictions. You can distribute to some other people who can then change the code and in turn distribute it can make it available to anyone who wants to use it. And also in this chapter there is also a discussion about the hospitality of the people. So I can relate it to writing a code which is hospitable. What it means is, when we write a code, it's just not for us. We have to document it well. So document it well, and so that the people who are working after you can easily understand uh, and can make necessary changes in the code. And the next is chapter 19 of Matthew. Here, this chapter explains about, gives the details about how Jesus has the opinion about the divorce and marriage, and yeah, in this chapter he explains about the commandments. Because a person asks Jesus what to be done in order to get an eternal life. So further, Jesus replies uh, uh, that he should follow certain commandments in the life, like you should not murder, you should honor your parents, love your neighbors, and you should not steal. So from this, mainly I took the point of you should not steal. So this we can relate it to the piracy of the software. So uh, we should not encourage the piracy distribution of piracy software. We should respect. We should realize that there are people who are working on the software. They needs to get on for that for that software for their work. My next chapter is chapter 9. So in this chapter it discusses about the Jesus forgiving people. He thinks that uh, we should he thinks that we should people should not entertain evil thoughts in their mind. People should always forgive the people if they are sinners. So um, so this kind of we can relate it to the people should always have constructive thoughts. uh, mm, we can relate it to ethical computing. A person having a good thoughts uh, will help in the kind of work he does. Okay, he can get better ideas. We should use computing for the constructive purposes, not destructive purposes. Next is chapter 15. This is kind of John covered the same thing. In this there is a discussion between the Jesus and teachers about the command of tradition versus command of God. Command of God. There are teachers of the law from Jerusalem asked Jesus that why his followers break the tradition. They don't wash their hands before eating. So for that he replies that the commandment of God is important than the commandment of tradition. And in this chapter, in another instance, Jesus feeds 4,000 people with just seven loaves of bread and few fish with him. So this feeding 4,000 people with just few fish, we can relate it to the distribution of the software, where in normal thing this will be a zero sum game, where if you want to give something, you will lose something. It is not possible to distribute any food or any other product before computing. Any other product you want to distribute it should obey the zero sum game. But software distribution or information exchange, in a way, it kind of deceives zero sum game, where if you give something, or if you have some if you want to share the software, you will not lose anything. And also technology makes people to share information easily. Like the reason we have explosion of information on the internet, because there are people who want to share their knowledge with others without charging. Yeah. Okay.
So, how uncomfortable was this assignment for you?
Yeah. It was hard initially, at least initially.
Okay.
So first 3-4 have actually, I wanted to do this assignment from last 1 week. Every day I was opening, and after 15 minutes I was getting bored to read this. Just close this. I thought next I will do next day. Yeah. So finally, after reading 1 or 2 chapters, I kind of got it, like idea about what this is about.
Mm-hmm. Now, based on how you grew up, was there any similarities that you saw in reading the chapters in Matthew compared to some of the teachings in Hinduism?
Like, I've never read any religious book. I used to watch TV series about
Okay.
those. Not like I've never read.
Oh, so even with Hinduism,
Yeah.
you didn't necessarily practice. Is it not commonplace to read the religious teachings in Hinduism? Like you said, there's lots of books. Is it not common to necessarily read them?
Yeah. So Hinduism is not organized as Christianity. So academically, it is not well studied as much as, say, Christianity.
I see.
So, and it's not well organized. Like it's mostly like, now it has become more like rituals, traditions, culture kind
But
of
what I
religion.
do need to know about though is I need to know about the monkey god.
Monkey guy. So
the statues of the monkey god all over the place in India.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have in their rear view mirror of their car a monkey god thing that he's like flying there.
Yeah.
So tell me about this. I mean, 'cause he's awesome.
Yeah. So the story goes is there is a god called Rama in Hinduism. Rama. So the Hanuman, the monkey guy which you're saying is Hanuman. His name is Hanuman. He is disciple of, like, he follows him, like, what do you say, like blind follower of Rama.
Okay.
It's like, so the monkey face, how he gets is he gets into fight with some other god, so that during that quarrel he gets hit here, so that it kind of becomes like monkey.
Okay.
That one. And the flying is there is a Sri Lanka, right? Sri Lanka. So in that book we have he should get some kind of leaves from India to from one place. I don't know which place. I don't remember, from one place to Sri Lanka, but he does not know which kind of leaves in that hill region. So he just since he does not know, he just gets entire mountain. He puts it on his hand and he flies with that. So that is the thing.
In the Buddhism, they have monkey god too.
Was it different monkey god?
They're different. In Buddhism, they have you guys heard about journey to the west? On the monks, he has a book like Bible, come back to the country, and monkey is one of this protector guardian. This guardian. This is imagination of people. Monkey is basically born from the rock. So pretty much they believe in the natural. So born from the rock, and he have few power, but he wants to learn something. So he go to the rock. He another basically teacher. Teacher teaching every kind of magic trick. So he flying under his legs is the clouds. The clouds that's help him fly pretty fast. And teacher who teach him is basically one of the god on the Chinese.
But this is a different.
Yeah, it's kind of different, but it's
This guy was like a big deal in India.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And there were statues of the monkey god everywhere.
Yeah.
And then there's actual monkeys, but I didn't see very many actual monkeys. Apparently they're farther north, you said?
Monkeys?
Yeah.
No, they are everywhere, but not in cities. You will not
Yeah,
find them
see,
in cities.
Well, I did see one monkey. We were out in the outskirts somewhere. We were driving someplace,
you might find in
and
outskirts.
this,
Yeah.
this monkey comes sprinting across the road, and it was fast. I mean, this thing can move. That monkey was going 700-800 miles an hour. I mean, well, kilometers an hour, yeah.
It was some a rocket.
We didn't get him.
What kind of monkey?
I don't know what kind of monkey.
An Asian monkey. Possibly an Asian monkey.
That's just like is that even a thing, or is that just a catch-all? Yeah. Just an Asian monkey girl.
It's just an Asian monkey, girl. Just
All
I don't
right.
know what name it is, but I can show you the picture of Asian monkey girl.
So now we're back on.
Please don't.
Do not
show
Google that.
me.
Do not Google that.
Asian monkey girl.
All right.
No, I just
So
an Asian monkey.
next
I think
week
there's a job.
we are
So
back on track
It's also monkey.
for.
Yeah, possibly this one is Dr. Littman see it. The most popular in Vietnam. See? This one, right?
Yeah, something like that.
In my country, people training like a concert or climbing to get the coconut.
All right. So this coming week is on automation, right? With the exception of.
I don't think you have automation
Oh, do I
under
do
like
that?
every week,
Oh.
and yet none of the 7 that you gave us
Are even on there?
actually
Oh, that's perfect. So it's what is it this week?
Automation.
Well,
automation.
you just said is it algorithms?
Yeah.
So whatever the order was in our
Yeah,
slides.
Algorithm.
Algorithms. This week is algorithms, except was it you, Jonathan, that did the wrong topic for one of the weeks?
Probably did. I think I just switched the 2 weeks. Maybe.
Okay. Well, if you did the wrong one for that other week,
Did I not? Well, okay. I guess I was
We
making.
did the same thing.
I was just referring off of what was online, so maybe that's why I got.
I don't know. Last time you told me to.
Yeah. Okay, so that is right.
I'm pretty sure you followed it.
Oh,
Otherwise, I would
never
have
mind.
said.
Okay. All right.
So
So algorithms for next week, right?
sweet.
All right. Well, perfect.
Alright, algorithm for next week, girl.
Yeah, girl.
Yeah.
Asian monkey girl.
Dude,
Let me log into.
maybe you search this is a lot.
What?
Can you search it?
No, I'm not searching. No way.
Do not search for that.
Do not search for that. I told you that. I'm not gonna search for that.